We are alive. Hey everybody. So it's time for Contorted. Let's see. Where is Anna Venizelos? We're gonna bring her in now, alive from New York City. Pardon the slight delay, but there was some sort of glitch. Interweb Instagram. So Anna Venizelos should be joining Tel Aviv soon.
Here we are.
There she is. Hey, Anna.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We missed you last week.
Thank you for
weekend.
We did, yes. But thank you all for being, patient and allowing. It was some Jewish holiday. It's always a Jewish holiday. But
it's basically all of September is a Jewish holiday.
Essentially, just shuts down. But we're in the final stretch now. Welcome to Contorted, episode 3.
Woohoo! So what are we talking about today?
Age today, and as we've been asking, and a lot of you have been sending in some really great ideas, and we have them stocked up, and we want you to send in even more. This one comes from Australia. That's how they say Australia down there. By Kylie.
I don't know about that.
And she's been doing what's that? You don't know if that's how they say it?
I don't know about that. I don't think that's how they say it.
I don't know. I toured there for a while. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
So did I. I never heard it pronounced like that.
Australia. Drag it on. So Kylie brought this great comment of training at different decades and training in age and contortion. And she is currently 47-ish and relatively new into her training. And she just wanted to hear our input on how it is to start training in the different decades, and then to maintain the level that you've trained in those past decades to keep doing it for decades forward.
Yeah, and so
this one's for you, Kylie.
Thank you, Kylie. I think we wanted to just start off by saying that, starting contortion is something you can technically do at any time, right? You can really start at any time. There's not a cutoff date per se, but we just kind of wanted to give you a breakdown of the decades which we have so far experienced. So we can speak to 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? And
yes.
So we're just gonna kind of, do we confirm 50s? Yes.
And you might, I'm disclosing mine at the end of this Contorted. You're gonna learn my true age.
Well, I think
Anna might even tell hers.
We learned it in episode 1, but if we have any newcomers, they will learn it at the end. Sound good?
Sounds
okay. Good. Cool. So let's start with our 20s. So if you're in your 20s, my word for you is build. And what does that mean? So that means put your time into acquiring new skills. This is the time where you can really push your training. So, you're getting to know your limits, you're getting to know what pushing past your limits is, and you can safely push past your limits a little bit in your 20s. And, this is kind of, you can consider it as your bulk training time. So just to kind of talk about a personal example, when I was in my 20s, I started my career with Cirque du Soleil at 23. And I was training 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that was, for me, that was totally appropriate at the time. Could I do that now? Oh no, that would not be good. That would be detrimental. But in your 20s, this is your time. You're acquiring new skills. You can push your limits, learn about your limits, and you're really building, right? Do you want to talk about your 20s?
And you're I don't remember them now. I do remember them. They were amazing. The 20s is a time that you can really, that allows a little bit more of a bounce back. So
Absolutely.
like Anna was saying, you can go for it, and you can, it's like the body is just a little bit more able to, like, you push it too far, and then it'll take
it's resilient.
It won't take, it's resilient. It won't take that long, whereas in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it's going to take a little bit longer to get those creaking and crackings like back into the nice fluid place. They'll go, because
Mm-hmm.
over the decades we know that it all goes back, but the 20s are your time to just like go for it. That said, especially in this day, I mean, Corona gives us a little bit more time because like we have some time, but to like not overly push and rush it. So like
Yeah,
really giving yourself the allowance of your time in your 20s, knowing that you've got a long career ahead of you. And
absolutely.
it's one of the things that I wanted to bring up from the beginning was that, well, first of all, there's a great history of people well into their 50s, 60s, and 70s still performing,
Mm-hmm.
still contorting. There is Christine Danton. She's 75 in Australia. I saw her at an international contortion convention like 5 years ago or 6 years ago,
Amazing.
maybe 10 years ago. There's Ricardo Sosa, who's a Cuban male contortionist based in Miami, 52, maybe 55 now, who knows?
Mm.
But there's longevity to the career, and it's one of the things
Angelique,
that as you're
Mongolian woman.
Angelique,
Yeah, in her 60s, still does a one arm, contortion one arm.
beautiful and amazing. So
Yeah.
it's one of the things that you really need to kind of push people away, because it's something that happened to both Anna and I in our training in our 20s and 30s. Um, that people will question you, and they're going to
Mm,
be like, yeah, that's really nice that you're doing that, but what are you going to do when you're 30?
right. Right.
And when
What's
you're
your
30,
backup
that's really
plan?
nice, great, but what
Yeah.
are you going to do when you're 40? So it's like, so you need to like flush that out of your brain, that it's a short-lived career span. If you are going to like feed it and water it and nourish it well, you can do it as long as you want to do it,
Totally.
generally.
Completely. And then I know we mentioned this last time, but I'm just going to slide that in there. You should, if you're in your 20s, this is absolutely a great time to find yourself a coach. Okay. So, what I was saying about being able to push your limits and about being able to kind of bulk train when you're younger, you do want to do that under guidance, right? So, it's not just you kind of, yeah, you're figuring things out, but you do need some guidance. You don't want to hurt yourself early in your career. All right,
You
let
need a
us move
map,
on.
like you need a map, and you need somebody that
Yeah,
you trust to make that map for you. So
to guide you.
20s, that's, we agreed. Go for it. The bounce back is going to be a little bit easier, and explore, like really explore where you can be.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just going to read this one little comment. I'm 28 and really excited about getting more flexible and even contortion, but was already feeling like it's maybe too late. Exactly. I get so many messages of people in
Mm,
their 20s, like, that want to start, people that are like 22, 23, 28. It's like, because, we see so much on Instagram and it's too much,
it's too much. Yeah.
often. So really, get that mind talk out. You have time. You
You have
totally have
tons of
time.
time.
As I say all the time, contortion is a very slow art.
It's kind of
So
like
you need to,
marathon running, don't you think? It's you sort of mature, you get better with maturity in a way because it's also it's
so
very
much.
mental too. It's very much in the brain. And I
Very,
mean,
very.
I can honestly say through the decades as I've matured, I've kind of gone deeper in that sense, in the sort of brain body connection. All
Yep,
right, let's move on to
1000%.
30s. 30s.
30s.
All
Take
right.
that, because you've been there more recently than I have.
Not that recently. Okay, but more recently than you, yes. All right, so 30s, my word for 30s is refine. Okay, so refine, what does that mean? So refining is all about finding your style, finding what you're good at, finding what you're not good at, perfecting your technique, right? So this means, you should always be working on cleaning up your lines, but now you're really working on it. So you're really you're fine tuning. You're really tapping into your body awareness. You know better now, kind of your limits and when it's time to stop and when you can push. And this is your time to sort of develop who you're going to be as a contortionist, as a hobby, as a performer, whatever it is you're going to do. The 30s, I feel, is your time to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
know,
agree. And you can also take these sort of decades and place them into like where you're starting. So for
Mm,
example, if you were in your
it's a good point.
20s, if
Hmm.
you started in your 20s and you trained for, the average is training for like 3 or 4 years in a circus school or with a trainer or a coach to get to a level of like the 30 place,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
decade. So if you take those 2, 3, 4 years of training in your 30s, so then just shift it up to where
Mm,
you are and allow those next 5 years, you know, to be your discovery and exploration place of who you are and what you're saying and refining your style.
yeah, I think that's a
So
great
I
point of just breaking it down into blocks of maybe 4 or 5 years. And we're just, just for sort of the ease of explanation, we're defining them as 20, 30, 40, 50. But like Jonathan said, you can apply it to where you started in your career, right?
Yeah, and for Anna and I, we're kind of similar in that we had our 20s as our training years, our 30s as our refining years, our 40s. I'll let Anna go into her 40s now.
All right, here we go. 40s. Um, so 40s for me, hint, hint, has been about maintaining. So that's been the big word for me, is maintaining consistency, really developing a consistent program and sticking to it no matter what. Now, it's not about volume. It's not about necessarily pushing like new, big, hard skills. I mean, maybe a little bit, but for me, it's been about maintaining and just being consistent and having a manageable approach to my training.
Totally, 1,000% agree with that. The 40s for me, which I do remember, were at that time of kind of qualifying your and refining your way of being as a contortionist. So
Mm-hmm.
what you need to accomplish your job, because by that point it's probably your job, and for me it was my job very much. The 40s were when
Yeah.
I trained and I mean when I performed the most and I toured the most and I had the most regularity in my contorting. So I
Mm.
toured with Limbo for those years and I was doing 8 shows a week for years. And the body, when you do it with that much volume, the body becomes very accustomed to it. So
Mm-hmm.
so you really
Mm-hmm.
need to just like allow it in naturalizing your body and also doing all the maintenance. But then you also have to
Yeah.
be careful for when those tours stop, and they do ultimately stop generally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that then becomes a huge shock into the body,
Yeah.
which happened personally for me. I had my most, and in all the decades, there's going to be injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to come up because you've made this Lamborghini of a body and a body of work, and a Lamborghini or any even a Volks, whatever, some old car. All cars need to go into the shop now and then and get their tune up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then every now and then a belt breaks on a machine and a body. It just doesn't matter. It's just going to happen. So you also need to be ready for that in every decade. That there's going to be times when a ligament busts on your thumb on Broadway because it just does. And then
Yeah.
over time, a friend like Anna, hi Anna, is going to help you back up into getting it all back. But
Yeah.
but frequency of the 40s, is was for me, and I think in something that even if you're training, you just want to continue into developing a high frequency of whatever able to go through your routines and training, and then maintaining it, especially
Mm-hmm.
when times stop.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
hard.
It's hard.
Like
It's
when the show
hard.
stops and when the show is canceled and you're depressed, and you will be, it's post-performance depression. We can talk about that sometime also. You
Mm-hmm.
know, then it's like, what do you perform for? It's a lot of the time of Corona also now, but we can go
Yeah.
into, that's a whole other
I think
time and topic.
it really kind of we can tie it up nicely by saying it's about developing a plan, right? Like just a manageable
Hmm.
plan.
Right.
And
Kylie,
it doesn't need to be extreme. It doesn't need to be like your best training every time. It won't be your best training every time, accept that, but you just have to do it. That's it. You just have
right,
to do it.
right. Kylie, who brought the topic in, says, would you train every day, or do the tissues need a break for better results?
That's a great question. I would say it kind of depends where you are in your journey. Personally, I would not train every day. If you're training under a
Ditto.
coach and if you're training under a coach or if you have a good program established for yourself, I would say 3, 4 times a week is absolutely maximum. And then you want to spend 2 days doing conditioning, doing PT that's specific to you, doing mobility, doing supportive stuff. But I think every day is just overkill. It's diminishing returns. Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, unless you're
And
in a
now
show, if you're in a show, you're in a show, that's your job. But if you want to maximize, so training and performing, two completely separate entities, right? So if we're just talking about training and maximizing your training, every day is no good.
1,000%. It's crazy how it changes when you're doing it every day as a show.
Yeah.
Because it's the body completely reacts differently to the whole contortion thing, than training.
Agreed.
Training, contortion, there's a whole brain thing. There's a whole build up to it. I've got to train, I'm going to train, but performing and doing it as a job, there's all the adrenaline and everything, just it makes it
no,
bam,
it's
bam,
two different things.
doing it. So different. So in terms of training schedules, exactly as Anna said, 3 to 4 times a week. Maximum.
You're good, but stick to it. You have to stick to it. It can't go to 2 times a week and then once a week. It has to just be consistent. 3 times a week is my sweet spot. I do it every week. And whether I feel good, bad, don't want to do it, want to do it, it just happens 3 times a week.
Exactly.
So Jonathan,
it's for musicians. I'm just going to, okay, and then we'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say it's for musicians. It's the same thing. Musicians have to run their scales daily. They do the same scale run every day, over and over and over and over because they just have to. It's the same of contortion. It's if you're going to take it on as your passion and intended work, you have to just run your scales.
So we have I'm just going to address this quickly. 3 times a week, how many hours? That's individual to you. That's totally individual to you. So that depends how much time your warm-up requires. If you have any PT exercises that you're including in your training. For me, it takes me a long time to warm up. I allow myself 90 minutes for my warm-up, and then I usually do my contortion-specific training for an hour, and then I cool down for about 20 minutes. So I think that's totally individual, and like I said, that's something, I know, it's a long time. I allow 4 hours for myself. I'm not training contortion the whole time. I'm not sitting in an oversplit the whole time. No. Actually, most of my training is corrective exercise, is strength building, and then I spend just that hour training my skills. But everyone's totally different, so you have to figure out what works for you. And again, I'm just going to keep saying it. The best thing you can do is hire a good coach that can direct you properly for you, right? Because I can't say this is what works for everybody, but you need to find out what works best for you.
Exactly. There's one quick question. I'm 29, about to hit 30, and I finally found a coach. Very good.
Great.
That
good
works.
job.
I love how it contorts you. Say that the seed was planted in you to start contortion. The seed for me is finally growing at 29. Beautiful. Awesome and awesome. Yay.
Yay. Good.
Yay. It's going to go beautifully. Good. So we've done our 20s, we've done our 30s, we've done our 40s. Anna would, oh, wait. You can't even talk. Oh, wait. This is me.
Wait, I have something to say for 50s. My word for 50s is pray. No. Pray.
It's
Take
true.
it away.
And I pray a lot. You may see it. I do pray a lot. Prayer is really,
you are real. A man of God.
I am a man of God. So yeah, I am 51 years old. And at this point right now in Tel Aviv, Israel, post New York, my contortion is feeling almost better than it sort of nearly ever has. And I'll just say that a lot of it has to do with environment and stresses and place. And one thing that Anna brought into my life, and something that we wanted to touch on also, as it does change over the decades, and we're going to do a whole other contorted on supplements and nutrients and nutrition.
Definitely.
But one of the things that does happen is levels change, especially of collagen. Do you want to talk on, like, just
Mm-hmm.
brush on that
Yeah.
for a second, Anna?
So, as we all know, the aging process involves loss of bone, loss of muscle, loss of collagen. So, the good news is that if you maintain your muscle mass, which is really one of the most important things for longevity, muscle mass, you can sort of stop all of this decline, so to speak, right? It's going to happen slowly over time, but if we can maintain our muscle mass, and that's why I'm so big on strength training, right? Like the stretching part of contortion is minimal compared to
Mm.
how you actually need to be strong. You need to be able to support yourself in those end ranges that you're developing. That is like 150% more important than, getting down in your splits. Because if you're not strong at your end range, well, forget it. It's injury time. So yes, we have this decline that does happen. I mean, it happens to everybody, but and like you said, Jonathan, we will dive much deeper into the supplements and kind of the little biohacking stuff that we do and that we find helpful, and then the lifestyle factors, because there's so much involved, right? It's not just your training. It's also everything else you do around that. So
So
yeah.
much. So I'm just gonna, like, come back into the 50s for a second.
Yes.
Is that the is that, since there aren't, there aren't too many, but there are, but there are a lot of people, who I've worked with and who I've gotten feedback from the Contortion videos, who have started in their 40s and are doing it in their 50s. I had an
Mm,
incredible student, Oliver, in his 60s. Really
mm,
just awesome people doing incredible work. And in the 50s, for me personally, I feel that now I'm able to just, like, step back a little bit, and enjoy it. And I've refound a little joy to it, because there's going to be these peaks and valleys of, like, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love
yes.
you.
Yes.
Contortion is very much a relationship,
Mm,
as a lot of physical activities are, but contortion is deep in there. And in the 50s, I think it's just very important to just find the joy and pleasure in it,
yeah.
and to
Yeah.
and to
I
fly
love
with
that.
that.
Yeah. That's great. We want to
There was a
definitely take your.
comment. Did you see the one?
No,
There was
I'm
there was
sorry.
one comment that I just wanted to touch on,
Yeah.
of if we've worked with plus size students. And I'm
Hmm.
coming into this late, but I have a question. Have you ever had plus size students? Totally yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
completely.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Oh, there we are.
and honestly, um, yeah, you
Yeah.
can you can do it. It's just
Totally. Yeah. It's the same. It's like same difference. Um, age, body shape, body type. Male, female. It's what we're saying pertains to everybody. That's the great
yeah,
thing. It's not just a select few. It's kind of like it's not a formula. Let's say it's not a formula, but it pertains to everybody. You know.
definitely. And
Yeah.
send us messages regarding feelings of any of that,
And in
and send
particular,
us
the
future
strength building component, because I just wanted to
so
say
much.
that a lot of times guys, who tend to be a little stiffer, more sort of muscle bound and big, they'll say, "Well, I just need to stretch," and I get that, but it's not the whole picture. It's not the whole picture. So there's a huge difference between active flexibility, strength training for contortion, and then just getting in the gym and doing, regular strength training, which is also good and important, but we're talking about strength training as is applicable to contortion and to flexibility. So I think that applies across the board, no matter what your body shape or type, male, female, age. It's really everybody.
Yes.
I think we should take questions.
Let's take questions. Let's
Take
take
questions.
questions. Shoot us some questions now in the little comment section, and think about topics that you want for future episodes. We have
Yeah.
we have some in gear but we definitely want to hear more of what you want to know about. Great point.
So
Strength
somebody,
training for contortion.
what does that look like? Oh, well, good you asked.
Look at Anna's
story. Yeah. Yeah.
Anna's story today.
I gave you a few,
and many
just
of
a
them.
few little, few little things. How often should we train in contortion per week and how long? So we discussed that earlier. We said our recommendation is 3 to 4 times a week, but that's consistently. That's really setting aside the time and doing 3 or 4 trainings a week max, right? And how long is totally individual. We can't tell you a number of hours. It depends on your warm-up, your conditioning program, your PT exercises, if you have any that you include, and then, you know, your skills training and your cool down. So everybody's
so much
totally
of it
different.
Also totally, and your coach, who you will find, will show you and tell you, you know, if they've got their, you know, together, you know, how you need to start to learn to listen to your body, to gauge yourself, to push yourself, you know, to your max and just a little bit beyond your max. Right. You know, but it's this whole play of like you also becoming your coach by, you know, like I like to think of myself more as people's guides. Yeah. To them learning how to coach themselves.
Absolutely. I think that's essential because that's the biggest gift as coaches we can give to people is training people to be responsible and to know their own bodies, right? And not to just constantly depend on someone like giving them a program, giving them a breakdown. Yeah, we are here to help you with that initially, but then it does turn into a relationship of kind of guiding people. And I have students coming to me all the time and they're like, you know, I'll ask them like, how do you feel today? And what do you think? And I really take into deep consideration what they're telling me. Like I don't show up with just a program written down and say, this is what we're doing today. No, you have to really base it on how the person shows up on that day. It's essential.
There is no set program.
There's no set program
of how to train contortion. That's why, like in you know, both Anna and I are the same. In my videos, like course, I don't, you know, and people at first don't get it. They're like, but how? But you know, but I mean, once you see the videos and once you understand that there isn't, everybody is so unique. You know, that you learn how to become your coach with the right guide. So I think that's very important. Like if somebody's saying, you know, like do this program for 6 weeks and you'll become a contortionist.
No.
Run.
Run fast.
Get a refund.
21 days to triple fold. No. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
It's not a thing.
I'd love to hear discussion around back flexibility and
with legs, knees together versus allowing them to come apart. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's super related to our topic today, but shall we?
We'll take that for another. We'll note that for a future episode.
Yeah. So just different tips
and
technique.
Here's Kylie from Australia. And we'll end with hers, and then we're gonna do a little quick. I know I found my couple of months of training with understanding keeps developing. Yep. Yeah. Totally. Completely. Yeah. Thanks, Alex. Yeah. We think you're kind of amazing too. So we're nearing the end of episode 3, but one of the things we did also want to just briefly touch on is we've already gone over time. I'm always late, and then we always go over time. Is that of how to structure a training, how to structure your training. So we're just going to touch on that for a moment and leave you until next week. So
yeah, I think that's a good place to end. So I'm just going to go quickly through my sort of 4 pillars of formatting your training. So number 1 is your warm-up, right? So just quickly to kind of state what a warm-up should include, mobilizing the body, doing any necessary PT for you, you know, and that's totally individual, dynamic and active stretching, and then very small part of your warm-up. If it's useful for you, personally, I don't do any passive stretching, but for some people, particularly with middle splits, I find that a little bit of passive stretching can be helpful. So yeah, you want to devote the bulk of your warm-up to dynamic and active stretching. And, you know, before that, you absolutely want to do any PT, any mobilizing that's, you know, pertinent to you. All right, number 2. So moving on to your skills. So you're fully warmed up, you're ready to go. And now we're going into skills practice, okay? So if you are training an act, this would be the time that you're running your act. If you're not, I would pick, what I like to do, and it's kind of fun, I pick one skill that's consistent for me, and then one skill that's a reach. So one skill that's you know, challenging me, and I will just work on that. Pick 2 things, nice and simple, easy, right? One skill I'm good at, and maybe I'll work on like a different entry or a different exit, and then one skill that I'm struggling with. All right, moving on. So part 3 of your training is conditioning. Not to be skipped, right?
Never. I hate conditioning. But I'm old.
So if you were listening earlier, I talked about strength and the preserving of muscle as being kind of our most important tool in longevity, right? So this is, and again, take a look at my stories. I gave you a couple ideas as far as contortion specific strength training goes. And I just want to mention also that the typical protocol for strength training is 3 sets. So what does that mean? That means you need to determine the an appropriate amount of repetitions you can do in a set. So for instance, say I'm doing drop backs, waterfalls, right? So I'm standing up, I'm dropping back to my bridge. And I can consistently do, let's say, 5 good drop backs, right? Before I'm tired and I need a break. So you would do your 5 drop backs, take a little rest. Second set, 5 drop backs, take a little rest, come back, do your third set, 5 drop backs, right? So that constitutes strength training, okay? So we talked about conditioning, and then number 4, also equally important.
I'll just say also,
yeah.
I do condition. I know that I hate conditioning, but I do condition. I often she forces me.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I'll do it sometimes in a separate training time. So
yeah,
see what works for you. But
so someone asked, where would we find your stories? So my account is my name, Anna Venizelos, and if you go to Contortion's account, you'll see like I'm in quite a few of his videos, so you can find me. She's
all over that place. So number 4 to your training.
Number 4 is your cool down. Another one of Jonathan's favorites. So I'm calling you out. I'm going to give you just kind of a breakdown of what constitutes a good cool down. So first you want to neutralize. And what does that mean? So we're coming from this extreme extension, right? Back bending is extension. So neutralize is a flat back position. So that would be any hip hinging movement. So that means like laying on your back and having your knees bent, feet on the floor, and you're doing hip bridges. So you're just lifting up and lowering down. So we're not rounding the back yet. So we're neutralizing now. Hip hinge is a flat back position, right? You could also be standing up and just folding forward with a flat back and then coming back up to stand. So you'd want to go through that first. And then your second step to your cool down would be twisting. So gently, but then again, laying down on your back, maybe arms out to the sides, and you do kind of like a knees side to side thing, right? Like a spinal twist. And then the third component to your cool down would finally be rounding your back. So, you know, you could do a roll up, you could do a plow, like legs over the head. But I find that progression works really well.
Well said, and I agree. Well, friends, we've come to the end of Contorted. We could go on for hours.
Totally, but we shouldn't.
Should we?
We shouldn't. No, we shouldn't.
We're going to let you all get back to your lives, and you'll come back to our lives 1 week from today on this same channel.
I'm cooling down as we speak, yes.
And, oh, beautiful. That's okay. Oh, very good. So those are the decades. Enjoy them. We have. And we look forward to telling you about the 60s, 70s, and the 120s.
Definitely. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy all your training, contorting, performing, and send us your direct messages of what you want to hear from
Please do. Please do.
All right,
Thanks again, you
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.